Welcome to the Assist Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and today we are doing another episode of our quarantine binges as we're on like month 3 or 6 or 9 or 15, I don't know. It's tough to measure time these days. But today we're going to be reviewing Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, talking about the surprising end to everything, and joining me for that is Star Wars expert, Thorin I can never get your name. It sucks.
Don't worry, you didn't even get it at the commencement ceremony.
That was the worst. I practiced for so long. I was like, "You're the people to thank. You had the worst name." And yeah, maybe you should take Avery's name.
That is a conversation that she's actually brought up. But I'm like,
oh boy,
I don't even.
Yikes! I think your dad might disown you if you go for that.
Whatever.
That's a big yikes. And also, my sibling and Clone Wars watch person.
Enthusiast.
Years we watched this as kids, and we finally got to finish as mature adolescents, young adults. Max Schwartz. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Zach.
Okay, it's great. So we're all here. I just cannot believe that this was, first of all, that this was back. I mean, it was shocking when they announced it, and it came out at the perfect time, honestly. Yes. And it seems during this time, it seems very not too ridiculous that we're about that us all over the age of 18 are about to discuss a cartoon from our childhood, basically. But I mean, this truly was a more mature set of episodes, I think, for many different reasons that we'll discuss, and also just it was a perfect end. Kind of perfect end, some of the episodes, to what we all had wanted when Disney abruptly canceled the project after they bought Lucasfilm back in the day. I guess first question, Thorn, did Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 7 live up to your expectations?
I would say for sure, besides a couple episodes that I'm sure we'll talk about that were kind of a drag, if I'm to be honest, because it was definitely a drag. But when it got into like the action and the story building and world building, oh my god, totally worth it.
What do you think, Max?
I thought it was a really good season overall, just except for that one arc. But I mean, I think the other 2 arcs were really good.
Yeah, I feel like, The Clone Wars is at its best when it develops new characters and it world builds like it did. Some of it this season did. But other times, it just it didn't, and it just kind of stayed stagnant, and those were frustrating because I felt like every 20-minute episode was just like a holy grail that like had to be curtailed and perfect because I knew there was only 12 episodes left. And that's another thing with this season too. Every other season's 20, 22, 23 episodes, and this one was only 12. And I get it. I mean, it makes sense, not to drag it out over longness, because I mean, this whole war only takes place over 3 years. But I definitely like the first arc, The Bad Batch. Third arc, The Siege of Mandalore, was fantastic, and I think some of the best episodes we've ever had. Maybe that's recency bias, I don't know. The middle arc, I just take real issue with. I really struggle to believe that they didn't have something else, that was talked about in a production meeting for that.
In regards to that arc, which for any viewers that do not know, it was focused on Ahsoka and 2 girls she meets in the underlevels of Coruscant, which I thought at least the first episode of that was really interesting because it showed parts of that world that we've never seen before, and also referenced level 1313, which was a canceled game that everyone was looking forward to, which they just scrapped. But I really thought that had somewhere interesting to go, and they did bring up good points about like how normal people see like everything going on like in their point of view. But the episodes where they started out, that I don't know if it's the second episode or third, they started out in the jail cell and they ended the episode in a jail cell, and in between those 2 moments they were running through the jail hallways, and that was it.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was that. I was going to bring that up. The worst episodes, literally. The definition of a filler episode is when you start in the place and then end in the same place. And it's like, okay, that's great. But I mean, I feel like, there were certainly moments, I think they were, when they were talking about, I believe it was Zero, right? The hut thing, the chase, seeing that was shown earlier, how that affected the underworld. And I thought that was interesting. I just feel like all the interesting moments of that could have been condensed into 2 episodes. And with that, of course, you can't just do it like in a vacuum. It's like, well, they could have done an awesome thing, whatever, with those 2 episodes. We don't know. And obviously, it's not like this is absolutely horrible and it's like an F rating, but the problem with this, with like that line of thinking, is that the Clone Wars, the strength of it is that there's just unlimited possibilities. There's so many Jedi. And many now that we've grown accustomed and understand their stories to where you could plop them in for a 2-episode arc with something, There's so many new worlds now. There's so many new characters that you can dive in and, discuss, and that we would have welcomed to see back. I mean, we played all the hits, right? We got Anakin, we got Obi-Wan, we got Admiral Trench, we got Rex, Cody, Ahsoka, etc. But like, did we really need those 2 sisters? I don't know. That was a little tough to me. What do you think, Max, about that middle arc?
I feel like you could just like get rid of it and literally nothing would change. Like, I don't really think it had too much impact on the overall story. On like the Siege of Mandalore, which obviously is aligned with Revenge of the Sith and Order 66 and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and like I get it. Like, we needed to figure out what Ahsoka was kind of up to, but we didn't even get that. It was just like Ahsoka's riding a speeder, and all of a sudden this happens. You know what I mean? It didn't go back and discuss what she was doing, or whatever. And so to me, it's. I think they could have taken it in a lot of directions, and I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have anything better. And I'm here criticizing being a college student who has no understanding of how this stuff works. But it's just hard to believe, with the amount of different directions they ended up taking Clone Wars over the 7 seasons, that they couldn't have found something else for 2 episodes, or if they wanted to stick to the 3-4 episode arc, something else that was a little more engaging, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it really treated the whole, like, the 2 sisters as, like, they're going to be really impactful later if we're spending 4 episodes with them, like. But then, you get to the part where the whole issue is that she dumped the spice and they need to give the spice to the drug lords.
One of the worst decisions ever, by the way.
She dumped the spice because she was pouting, and that was it, pretty much. And it's like, wait, huh? You did what?
That might have been the dumbest move of the whole series. Once again, recency bias, and I may not have seen every episode, but that literally, yeah, you're right. It's just pouting. The 2 people are arguing. The Ahsoka and I don't even know the sisters' names. That's how bad it was.
Trace and Rafa.
Rafa was the older one, right?
No, Trace was the one that was like the bad one. Rafa was the one who was the pain in the butt.
Was Rafa who was the older one?
Rafa was the one who dumped the spice.
No,
you're
Trace
wrong.
did.
What? Oh.
Rafa was the one that organized the spice. Jesus, Max, okay.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah, like, the whole thing, like, Rafa and Ahsoka are arguing, and it was an interesting conversation about spice, and obviously we've been introduced to the Pikes before in certain contexts, and their empire and stuff, and, like, in the middle of the argument, she just dumps the spice, and that's not even what they're arguing about. The younger sister does, Trace, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, I just, like, are you telling me a character that could build her own ship that they are on, right, with parts, would also be emotionally dumb enough to make that decision when they're facing the Pikes, who have been shown to be one of the most feared crime syndicates in the galaxy? I mean, we could go on and on. A lot of this arc just doesn't make sense to me. That's my main issue.
Yeah, I feel like that type of character sounds like it should have been an older woman, like at least a girl with her in her 20s or something, or maybe Rafa should have been the one that actually built the ship or something. Because if you're like 14 and stuff, and you build your own ship, that's not a. I would assume even in Star Wars, it's not a small accomplishment.
Yeah, like
expect to have the maturity with that accomplishment, hand in hand. But who knows?
Yeah, when Anakin did it in Episode 1 with like his pod racer, right? It was like, oh, he's special.
Yeah.
He's going to murder millions of people later on.
And kill younglings.
Kill younglings, that's right. So yeah, I think like, you know, if we do like the 5 years from now thing, we're going to remember slightly the Bad Batch. Be like, all right, this was the introducing. Yikes.
Introduction.
You can tell I've had a week off from doing this. An introduction. And then we'll obviously remember the Siege of Mandalore for being awesome, but then we're just going to forget about the middle episodes. We'll be like, whatever.
Yeah. Like, sure, there's definitely important parts in them, but it definitely could have been condensed, I would think, in favor of other routes to go on. Because I honestly expected to see a little bit more of Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Me too.
I'm not necessarily disappointed, but I would have rather had episodes with them instead of just like that middle 4 episodes. Like every week, I was like, "That's it."
Yeah, I definitely I think best case, at least for what we wanted, could have been, you know, Ahsoka with them, whatever, for 2 episodes. We kind of get caught up. We use her repairing her speeder or whatever as like a flashback kind of thing to what happened after she left. And then another 2 episodes are just Anakin and Obi-Wan kicking ass somewhere on some random planet like they do. And then, but inside of that, you can sense more of a tension, you know, with Obi-Wan and Anakin about the council, because at that point, Obi-Wan would be on the council. Anakin's trying to be on the council by the 3rd movie, which the last 3 episodes overlap with episode 3. So we're not it is either the last 3 or 2. So we're
3,
not,
yeah.
Okay. So we're not that far off from like that stuff being real, you know? So I feel like something like that could have been not necessarily that Anakin and Obi-Wan are obviously hating each other, but just that you can kind of sense like that tension that, you know, in between episode 2 and 3 was very abrupt, and we're like, oh, this guy went from an adolescent to Dark Lord already. And then Clone Wars has done a good job filling that in, and even this season does a little bit with Anakin just killing Admiral Trench out of nowhere, kind of, you know, no prisoners. And the same thing with how Obi-Wan reacted to Count Dooku dying. Or Anakin killing Count Dooku.
Oh yeah,
which I think was really interesting. But I just feel like we could have used something else there. I mean, even like something with some of the other people, like Yoda. I don't know. Who knows? We'll never get.
I have to agree.
What'd you think of the Bad Batch?
I liked the Bad Batch. Maybe I would think maybe if I had to be critical, maybe it went on for like an episode too long. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Just because they all seem like walking stereotypes of, if you watched any like Vietnam War movie, you kind of that's kind of it. That's every personality that you would think in a. You would think they would have started playing Fortunate Son at one point.
Yeah, I mean,
but I liked it.
It's weird for us too, because traditionally these were either 2 or 3 episodes, like episode arcs. You know, I remember. Mostly they were 3 when you had a big storyline and you had to watch those all in order. Then you can figure it out from there. So I do think it's a little interesting that they went with the 4 episode arcs for each of these. Obviously, the last one deserved it, but other than that, what do you think, Max? Did you like the Bad Batch?
I loved the Bad Batch.
You loved it. All right, well, explain, because you seem to like it more than Thorin and I did.
I just think that those episodes did a real good job of like showcasing each of their abilities, like with like Crosshair, like being a like great sniper and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like the one scene in the one episode where he set up like the little like circle things that deflected the laser bolt, and like he only used one laser bolt and killed like a whole bunch of droids. And then Wrecker, probably my favorite.
I knew you'd be a Wrecker guy.
Actually, I want to add, I don't think that I dislike aspects of it purely out of like a critical, but it was kind of like I knew it was the last season, and I think the Bad Batch arc really felt like old times, but in a way that I was like, okay, but we're going somewhere and we don't have that much time. So maybe my critiques have to deal with me not wanting to waste quote unquote time on a regular story, if you know what I mean. So maybe I think it was really good Clone Wars, though. Really good Clone Wars.
Yeah, I feel like it, you know, it also brings up some questions like, where have these guys been the whole time? Because you feel like obviously, with other than this season, I would say a lot of the Clone Wars, like you don't necessarily have to watch in order. You know, it's not season 1, then season 2, then season 3. And I think there is like a Star Wars release something as how you should watch it in chronological order, technically. But for the longest time, it wasn't like that. It was just like all this stuff's just happening. You know, there's character development. It's not really necessarily, you know, this battle and this battle and this battle. So, you know, but at this point it is, you know, this is the end of the war. We hear that, we know that, you know, it's mentioned many times. And so it's like, all right, well, where's the Bad Batch been the whole time? You know, I feel like for them, it would have been really cool if, and obviously this is like, you know, I'm nitpicking here because now we're going back 10 years and maybe they didn't have the idea. But if they were like, you know, in season 3, they had like an episode dedicated to them, whatever, one of their own stealth missions. And then throughout the rest of the series, they kind of come in, you know, when you need them.
Sure.
So obviously that's a bit of hindsight 2020. I thought they were good, but once again, I think you're right. Like by the 4th episode, I'm kind of like, all right, this Wrecker's going to do some brawling things, you know. Crosshair's going to do some cool shit, shooting people droids. Sorry, never shoot people. You know, and like it's once again, it's cool. And I think, you know, for us, we were just so happy to have it back as well in the moment. You're just like, yes, I don't even care, you know. And having Anakin and Rex interact with them, I thought was really interesting as well. But it's still just like, I feel like I could, if I sat down for 3 hours, I could think of 3 half-baked better arcs, you know?
Maybe. I really liked the part of with Padme when they're talking like that.
Yes.
I thought that would be a little bit more, I thought she would be more in there in a few episodes. Instead of just that moment, but that moment I believe was really good. That was very touching.
Yeah, I agree. Padme wasn't in it at all. That's a good point. I didn't even realize that. You're kind of like critical to the whole thing. She basically, you think about it, you know, Padme starts the Empire.
I think Jar Jar starts the Empire, which is why I hate him so much.
I mean, other than him just being a shitty character, Jar Jar's rough. But no, that's a good point, and I think that one of the best things, you know, I think that was episode 2, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
is like the Obi-Wan thing coming in, like that he knows, like he's like, tell Padme I send my regards or whatever, and it's like, oh, whoa, and then just doesn't mention it ever again. It's like that, like is especially with the revelation, you know, I don't know revelation, but like in Clone Wars, that Obi-Wan had his own kind of thing with the Duchess, and then had to move on from it, but it never really, like, his feelings never really went away, and that's what made the Darth Maul murder of her so brutal. So it's like that once again, like another thing that, like, you know, Anakin and Obi-Wan in a lot of ways are similar characters, obviously, you know, Master and Padawan, but everything that Anakin does wrong, Obi-Wan does right in sense of the Jedi. And even though, like, he's not, and Obi-Wan's not the perfect Jedi per se at all, because he does do things where he's like, yeah, the council kind of said this, but like, oh, yeah, whatever, do this, or like, you know, he's not like the perfect guy, but he is like his morals line up, all his ducks are in a row, you know, he believes, his belief system's all set up, and Anakin's always like wavers a bit, in some ways, and that's what ends up turning him. So I you know, sorry, it was a long-winded explanation. Basically, like, I just wish we had more interaction with them, and you already said that. It just seems like that was it's the fundamental relationship of the prequels. If you ignore episode 1, which I still think could have been 20 minutes, in the second movie.
Could have been a flashback. That's always been what I thought. Episode 1 should have been a flashback.
Should have been terrible. But I wish they would have hit on that a little more. Don't get me wrong, Ahsoka Tano's awesome, and I think, you know, her in the Clone Wars has been one of the best things of the Clone Wars, and now she's getting what rumors of being in other series that we'll touch on. So, and I think her character development throughout the series has been fantastic. But it's like, I just wish there was another 1 or 2 episodes on those. What do you think, Max, about that, Anakin and Obi-Wan? Do you feel like they were in it a good? Because they weren't not in it. You know, like Yoda. Yoda was in it like once, and that's it. But, and Padme too. Do you think there was just the right amount of Anakin and Obi-Wan, or too little?
No, I think Anakin and Obi-Wan could have been in it a little more.
So, what would you have wanted to have seen from those two?
Probably just one last, like, mission for them together with the 501st and the division with Cody.
Yeah. Before they all died.
execute Order 66.
Well, I guess that's a transition there.
To the best arc ever.
I was about to say, we've railed on this for about 19, 20 minutes. And now we're not going to criticize it the rest of the time. Because these last 4 episodes were fantastic. Probably, once again, I keep saying recency bias because you got to be careful of it, Like, Michael Jordan's still the best NBA player ever. That pod will be coming in a couple weeks, by the way, people. It's happening. But I still think, outside of, in terms of arcs, definitely. And also, a lot of times Clone Wars' strength has been the one-off episodes, where there's just like the quote at the beginning of the episode matches up with the whole arc, and it's great for the one story. But in terms of 3-episode arcs, 4-episode arcs that we've seen in this series, this is top 3 easily, possibly the best.
Yeah, I fully... It felt like it was its own movie.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Mandalore stuff itself, because we heard about it in The Mandalorian, and I'm confused about something with that we can talk about in a second. The siege itself, they just took over pretty easily. And obviously, I guess that was part of the plan for Maul. So, the actual battle itself, I didn't think was that great in terms of Clone Wars action. But just everything's coming behind it. And I think what they did with Darth Maul's character was brilliant this season in the last 4 episodes. Absolutely brilliant.
You hear the dread in when he's screaming at the end of the first episode about how everyone's going to burn at the end. Like, oh man, what's going to happen, but at the same time you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, and how they decided to use him with, that he knew some portion of his plan, of Sidious's plan, of Palpatine's plan, to take over, but he didn't know how it works. So seeing him, throughout the 4 episodes, because we do get Order 66 in episode 3, we get all this stuff, eventually put all the pieces together, and there's a scene where he gets let out of eventually gets captured by Ahsoka, which, big win for Ahsoka, going from Padawan kicked out of the Jedi Order to capturing Darth Maul. That's wild.
Yeah. One of the best lightsaber duels in the entire franchise.
For sure. But then he goes, the clones, he's doing the math in this. You can see him, throughout this arc doing the math in his head all the time. He's like, oh, that's how he did it. Brilliant. And it's just like, wow. Just how they use his character. I don't want to say it's a retcon, but that he wasn't keyed in on the whole plan yet in episode 1. I think that was a really great strategic direction for the series to take in this season.
Oh yeah, it was almost like you were kind of with him because what's going to happen, and he kind of knows what's going to happen, so you're kind of with him in a way where you're like, yeah, that is how it happened. It's crazy, right?
Right. What do you think, Max, of Maul?
Brilliant as always. I've loved him since, really the Phantom Menace, since that lightsaber duel was amazing. But in terms of his Clone Wars character, man, was he great.
Yeah, he was.
Such a badass.
And the best part about it was, I figured out when the Clone Wars was canceled and everything, and I was just trying to look up what it had been like, and they were like, yeah, their clones paint their helmets in the way Ahsoka's look like, or I don't know if they're tattoos, but her markings.
Right.
I'm like, that would be so cool. And then they showed up, and I'm like, oh my god. And you can see that even though she got expelled, they all still love her. They're like, oh my god, dude, this is and the irony, the duality of it is they paint their helmets to look like her, and they're the same clones that are trying to hunt her down and kill her. It's just it's just so heartbreaking to watch that.
Yeah, the Clone Wars is at its best when it leans into that irony, because if you're watching, if you're 7 or something right now, or 10, and maybe you went out and saw episode 8 or something like that, whatever, for Star Wars, but you don't know, you haven't grown up with it, you don't know how it all plays out, and the fact that everything's out of order. So if you watch everything in order, right, you watch the prequels, or you watch 1 and 2, then you watch the Clone Wars, and you watch 3, and then you watch all the shit in between. Rebels is before 4, right?
Yes.
And Rogue One and Han Solo and all that jazz. Things I haven't watched. Sorry. Then 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, 9. I'm sure they'll do stuff in between 6 and 7. Well, The Mandalorian, for one thing. If you watch it all in chronological order, you won't get it. And you won't get the full impact, I think, of Clone Wars that you get knowing that all of this is doomed, knowing that all of this is literally just a game for this super powerful guy that's going to take over anyway. Knowing that, and they lean into it too. I mean, there's that one arc where Anakin is shown to become Darth Vader, and then like all the mind wiping happens and stuff, and no one remembers it. But it happens, and even that leans into it now. That Maul knows what's going to happen, has had visions of it, and so like. Without that, and once again, it leaned hard into it, but I feel like, the way to watch Clone Wars is knowing everything that happens. Like, you have to watch the movies first, because some of these episodes just hit so much harder, all the clone sacrifices, all the bonding, even between other commanders and their Jedi generals. It's not just Ahsoka, Rex, Anakin, Rex, Cody. Even Cody Obi-Wan is so sad because, I mean, obviously this, once again, kind of a retcon, not really, but the inhibitor chips, and like now that you saw, obviously Rex kind of hesitated when given the order and told Ahsoka to go do something and then couldn't resist the programming. And then, but Cody just like, yep, screw this guy, fire. And it's like, oh, that's a little tough. I bet you the guy who, like Filoni, Dave Filoni, who wrote most of Star Wars, Clone Wars, would like to have that back. Because, of course, Obi-Wan's the main character. Cody was in this a lot, probably the second most important clone to Rex. So it just kind of sucks. I was like, yep. And then it's like, well, we can't really do anything about that. But, I mean, oh well. So, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I wish, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I honestly wish they would have animated parts, or like at least parts, but I wish they would have animated a bit of episode 3 along with it.
Yeah. That would have been interesting.
Which, going off of that, I do have in my possession as a file on my computer, it is a 3.5 long video file with the Siege of Mandalore and episode 3 spliced together, like seamlessly. And, he edited the music and everything to line up. And I didn't watch the whole thing, of course, because finals week. But the parts that I skipped through, man, like, that's tough. It was tough to watch. I mean, it was kind of jarring because it goes from animation to live action and some voices change. But, I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. It was just, oh, man. Like, the additional context was just beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Order 66, that was even worse.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. It's so... because, once again, the Clone Wars, like we were talking about earlier, provides such a context and understanding of the Jedi, and a lot of people we wouldn't have known, like Ki-Adi Mundi or Luminara Unduli, who you don't even see die in episode 3, but you eventually see in Rebels that she didn't make it.
Right.
But, like, all of those characters, you understand their personalities. They have episodes centered on them. Even Mace Windu, the most arrogant of them all. He, like, watching some of this stuff, he's tough, I as a kid, I was like, this guy's awesome, purple lightsaber, and it's like, this guy's kind of a dick.
Yeah, especially with the Clone Wars, like, in the past, and then last episode, or second to last, like, you can see that he is, like, the embodiment of what is wrong, and why Anakin fell, because he could have just been like, you know what, you're really good at what you do, and we appreciate you, we just can't, you can't be a master yet. That's just not how it works. But instead he was like, take a seat. Learn your place. Anakin was like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah, and especially, with... I remember, looking at... with the Clone Wars brought back this scene from Revenge of the Sith, where they're talking, like, all the Jedi, whatever, and they're talking about it, and he's like, the dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor. And it's like, Okay, so if that's true, what do you think it is? Who do you think is the Sith Lord? You think it's one of his aides or his guards? Like, what do you, like, you think it's just there, like, hanging out? You know what I mean? Like, that part doesn't even make any sense. And then later on, when Anakin's like, he's Palpatine's Sith Lord, he's like, what? It's like, how did you not think about that before? You know? Like,
I think that also has to deal with they were hiding a lot of shit from him.
right.
And that probably was impactful of him, like, you guys are, I'm on the council, but you guys just still won't tell me anything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well,
Which
even
you can see that when Ahsoka comes.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead. You say.
No, yeah, like, you see with Ahsoka, like, you know, Yoda's chill. By the way, this series has been great with Yoda, overall. You know, Yoda's a big winner from this whole series, just being the wise, kind of chiller, and, like, even funny in some senses. He's everything, like, if you put Yoda and Mace Windu at the top of the Jedis, sorry, bad English, which they are, right, the number one and number two, Yoda reflects so much better than Mace does, and in the scene too, he's like, you know, him and Ahsoka linger for a second, and he's like, are you sure you have nothing to say? And, like, Ahsoka had just been told off by Mace, like, this is not for citizen stuff or whatever, and it's like, dude, you're fighting a war, you think there's a plot to destroy the Jedi, because you just said it, and you're still holding on to shit like that?
Yeah. Where
Like,
that moment could have prevented the entirety of the rest. Like,
yeah,
hey,
oh, for sure.
Anakin's being groomed. You might want to look up on him or check up on him, and then they don't. And what do you know? He comes and kills everyone because he's fed up, which makes it even more tragic. Like, everyone around him failed him that were supposed to be there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you could say except for Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan was doing a lot of his own stuff at this time, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously Obi-Wan chops him up into pieces, so.
I have the high ground.
Yeah. So I guess he did fail him in a way as well. Yeah, so anyway, Mandalore's awesome. We got some Easter eggs for people from Rebels too, I noticed. That was pretty cool as well. You know, tying it all together.
Yeah. Which, when at that final scene with the Empire and everything, man, Rebels was alright, but if they would have used that art style, that would have been amazing.
I agree completely. That was fantastic seeing that. And that final scene is just perfect, you know, with the clone helmet reflecting Darth Vader away, and it's just like when the clone helmet's half buried. It's like none of it even mattered. Really didn't.
Yeah. And, like, I just know if they would have cut to that scene and it would have had, like, Rebels art style, the whole thing would have just fell apart. I would have been like, oh, this is just a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even look good.
Well, they use live action for a lot of these fights too, as well, which I think it really came across. You know, I think especially Ahsoka for me, she really came across as looking, you know, with her obvious. Oops, sorry, Max. We're too close together for this. Damn it! Now you pulled out my headphone, you idiot. All right, we're back. I'm gonna leave that in. I think the issues of quarantine podcast. We do it for you guys on this landmark 50th episode. With Ahsoka being what's it called? A Twi'lek? Is that the proper way to pronounce it? I can't pronounce regular English words.
I don't think she's a Twi'lek.
No.
I think it's a different.
That's Ayla Secura.
What? They're just different colors.
Yeah, they both have the hair tentacles, but I think they're different.
All right. Anyway, you can tell, like, even with that, like that's really hard to pull off those type of movements. Obviously, with something that's not human. So I think, you know, they really did a great job doing that, and you could really tell, especially in the lightsaber battle with Maul. You know, you mentioned it's one of the best lightsaber battles of the whole entire Star Wars stuff, and it is. And I think it really came across there.
Yeah, the quality of it was just like, it looked and felt like the old Star Wars, Clone Wars that we grew up with, but the detail and I don't know, it was just the quality of it was just on another level. Like, it just looked so good. I was thinking about it and, like, looking close at the frames, it almost looks like some parts almost look like they're painted, if you know what I mean, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you can see, like, I just really like the stylistic choice of, like, the brush strokes almost is what I can describe them as.
Right, for sure. I mean, you know more than I would doing your digital art and such that you do. But Max, do you have anything to comment on the animation style or just overall your impressions of all the stuff we've been talking about that you haven't said a word for?
I think the animation in this final season is just superior. I mean, you compare this season's animation to season 1, and holy cow, the difference is amazing.
Yeah. It's almost like comparing like an action movie now to like the 90s, where it's like, ugh, I can see the green screen, basically.
Yeah. Which, hopping onto that, I read somewhere that the rumored sequel series to Rebels might be using at least a similar art style to Clone Wars, which I will be very happy if it does.
I mean, it does make sense, right? I mean, part of the reason I didn't watch Rebels is the art style. I just didn't really like it, and that might just be a personal preference.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to get over.
But also for this, like, it makes sense, right? I mean, this is the most advanced, digital moving picture design you can have, right? I mean, are you going to tell me that Disney doesn't have that?
Right.
So it just makes sense too from that time difference. So with the Rebels sequel series pick up right after like the current. When did Rebels end? See, I haven't seen all of it. I've seen the important scenes like the Ahsoka Darth Vader fight and like Ahsoka finding out Darth Vader's Anakin, all that jazz, and the Captain Rex stuff. But like I haven't seen like Commander Rex, I guess. I haven't.
No, he gets demoted to make it make sense.
He gets demoted in their little hut with the three of them. By the way, I'm bringing that up later. Does it pick up right afterwards, or is it still just rumored?
I would assume, because Rebels ends with like during, I think I watched it a while ago, but I think their whole thing was they were freeing their home planet from the Empire, and to get Admiral Thrawn away, they summoned they're like space whales that naturally use hyperspace. They're kind of interesting, but Ezra uses those, and he's on like Thrawn's Star Destroyer, and he takes himself with him, so they just get launched to God knows where in the galaxy, and he tells his friends to come find him whenever they can. So I think the rumored story would be either Ezra and Thrawn learning to kind of respect each other because they're in the middle of nowhere and they need to survive, and also I think Sabine and Ahsoka trying to pin down where he might have went. So, I mean, I would definitely like to watch that. But that's all I know.
I'd probably have to catch up on it if I like the whole series. Did you ever watch Rebels, Max?
No.
Why not?
I heard it was terrible.
Whoa.
It's not terrible. It's just like the first couple of seasons of the Clone Wars sometimes, or at least it's a lot more like the first couple of seasons of the Clone Wars where you're like, some of this stuff, like, it is for kids, but there's just not a lot there for someone older, because it's just consistent like little tiny jokes, or like not taking the situation anywhere seriously, and it's like kind of losing me here.
Right.
But the overall story arc is definitely cool to check out.
I'll have to look into that for sure. Can we... First of all, anything else to say about the Siege of Mandalore? Either of you two?
No.
It was fantastic.
I have a couple plot points that I pick issue with. One, the whole first episode of the Siege of Mandalore, I was trying to figure out how Maul got away from Darth Sidious, because that's what the last time we saw him, right? Mm-hmm. Before the cancellation. So after some Google searching, it turns out there's a comic about it. And I guess this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, instead of... Did you see what it was? First of all, do you know what I'm talking about?
Not. I know there was a comic. I don't know what he actually did.
So I'm going to paint you something that is a million times better than what we got with the middle arc. Ready for this? So apparently it's like the son of Dathomir, and I was reading through it, and basically Maul's in a prison, right? Or whatever. I don't know why. They didn't really go into that. And Like, he talks to Count Dooku and has some, like, interesting things to say, obviously with both of them being apprentices of Darth Sidious. And then it goes on with, like, Gar Saxon, the Mandalorians that he commanded, come and try to break him out. They do. And he go, like, Sidious wants to get rid of Mother Talzin. So, like, at one point, Maul and Dooku start working together to possibly overthrow Sidious, and then Grievous comes in, and Sidious himself, and it all turns, and Maul just gets away. But, like, at one point you have Grievous coming to destroy Mother Talzin finally, once and for all, and all this other stuff. And Count Dooku's there, and, like, Talzin possesses Dooku at one point, and it's just, like, it just seems like such a chaotic, amazing thing that would have been so fun to watch. Just you have Sidious, Grievous, Maul, and Talzin all fighting. And then apparently Obi-Wan and, like, Anakin show up, and I think maybe it was Mace Windu as well, show up to try to, like, capture them all and stuff, and then that doesn't work out. And I think that might have been, I didn't read the whole thing, obviously. That might have been when Maul and Dooku team up because they're trying to fight Obi-Wan and Mace Windu. And so it's just like, it would have been, like, just crazy to see all that, you know, because we've had times where Dooku and Obi-Wan have had to team up in the Clone Wars. I think that would have just been insane to see. Instead, it's a comic book, which kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen, like, the Sith get together like that.
Right.
Or cooperate, because that's not who they are, but, like, to fight someone like Sidious, that would even give him more of, like, this dude's bad. Like, this dude is just the end-all, be-all of Sith. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. What do you think, Max? Would you much rather seen that?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. I think it would have been crazy. So, I guess that's the explanation for it, but, like, I'm especially with, you know, even Episode 9 kind of did this too with Palpatine coming back. They said it in the opening crawl and stuff, and explaining, like, the Force dyad. And sometimes Marvel does it too. Whenever they release, like, critical information in the novelization or a comic book that goes along with the movie or the series, I'm just like, why not just make it? Put it in.
Yeah.
Like, because, I mean, even I would have sufficed. It would have sufficed to just have, like, I don't know, an introduction, just Darth Maul escaping from Darth Sidious' clutches with the help of whatever, Gar Saxon. Like, maybe, okay, that could have helped, because, like, it just kind of, it was a little jarring, because Darth Maul's an unforgettable character, and we weren't going to forget where we left off with him.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. That would have been a lot better at the end of the day.
Second
plot, which also,
go.
Sorry.
No, go.
Even with the Rise of Skywalker, the whole supplemental material that you need, I figured out that whole, you know, the message that Darth Sidious sent out that said he was back, instead of putting that in the movie, they actually have a recorded scene, at least audio, of the message. Do you know where it was? Do you know where they played it?
Reddit?
Fortnite.
Oh my god.
They had an event for Fortnite to promote the movie, but they had such an important part in it. It wasn't just like a trailer that played for everyone. Like, you had the message that was supposed to kick off the whole movie, the message was pretty cool. Like, if you look it up, it was really, like, I enjoyed it. It was a cool speech by Sidious, but it was in Fortnite, man. and a one-time only event to catch. Like, you can't do that. You really can't. Like, Disney says Sidious is back, and everyone goes, why? And now Disney's like, what do you mean, why? It's like, what do you mean, why?
Yeah, I just, like, this may sound lazy, and I don't think it is, with the literally thousands of different shows on Netflix, Hulu, HBO, like ESPN, etc. that I can consume, that if I make the decision to sit down and watch a 12-episode season, or a 4-episode arc, or a 2.5-hour movie, that I expect all the information pertinent to that movie to be in it. I understand there are a lot of story arcs that have to be on the cutting room floor, and I get that. I get there's deleted scenes that are half-minute long that sometimes provide extra context or a little funny, like what Marvel does or whatever. But you're right, with something that integral to the movie, like, We needed it. We needed that. And
Yeah.
I think, well, maybe we didn't need the Darth Maul stuff. I mean, it certainly could have helped. It could have helped me thinking and looking it up and reading stuff that I was just confused on and wondering why it wasn't in the show, the series itself.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Max? You used to love Fortnite. Did you watch it? Maybe you did.
What, the thing on Fortnite?
Yeah, the event.
No.
Didn't they have a Travis Scott event on Fortnite too?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to like Fortnite. I had a lot of fun on Fortnite, and then it became what it is now, and I tried to play it a few weeks ago. Yeah, I got my ass handed to me. I'm like, I'm just gonna play a fun game, just see how it is. And dude, it's not fun anymore for me. Like, I don't want to. I like playing games where you can be competitive or you can just play it for fun. But that game, you can't just play it for fun. It has to be like a job almost.
It's too much. Here's a question:
It's too much.
Is OG Fortnite like OG Twitter? Where it's like it was just so much simpler. You just played, you had fun, you could play it, and maybe get lucky and win. You didn't have to be super good. You didn't have to do all this building crap. You could just play it with your friends. Like OG Twitter was just simple. Like you just go Saturday night, there'd be just like for DMs or dumb thoughts or just people just updating life instead of endless political commentary and debates and arguments and things that don't really matter.
It's too negative.
I would even say it's kind of like OG TikTok as well, because I know you just got into the scene, Zach, but at least like 2018, is when I downloaded it as like, I need to see what it is. Like, I don't expect anything from it, but it was just a bunch of like random people making funny videos online just for the fun of it. Like, no other underlying goal. It was just to fuck around. And you just scroll through it and just laugh at people, and it was a good time. And then now you're either, I mean, I still have that on my feed, but none of those people are they're still not making any, success or money from it. But the people that are actually promoted and shoved down your throats are the people that are doing the same dance over and over again. The people are like, you have to be a professional, in quotes, at TikTok, which is just being completely low effort. You have to be attractive and you have to show a little bit of skin and you have to dance a little bit and boom. And it's like Fortnite. No one knew what they were doing at the start, and it was like, oh my god, this is hell. And now you have to be a job. You have to be a streamer that can build like crazy, which I mean, I guess you can compare it to anything like before or after when people make it mainstream and make it a job. But god.
Yeah, but this is a game. That's the thing. I don't scroll on TikTok. I watch the ones you and Katie send me. That's it. That's all I do on it. That's all I do on it. I can't even send a message because I don't have a thing uploaded or whatever. So I watch all of yours and I think they're funny. I just want to say
I appreciate that.
But yeah. Last thing, I take issue with the plot. Okay. We had, with Rebels coming before this, we had always assumed, right, that Rex took what Fives had told him about the inhibitor chips and whatever else, and had taken it out on his own accord. And that kind of showed, then with the Rebels series, Rex is found with Gregor, I believe, right, is his name, and Commander Wolfie, who, great name, by the way, with Plo Koon as well, favorite Jedi in the youth, other than Obi-Wan, from the series. But anyway, so we figured that maybe Rex had told them as well, and the weird thing from that was why wouldn't he tell Cody about it? That's weird. And so I guess they solved that question by showing that it was not Rex that took out his inhibitor chip. It was Ahsoka who, saw that Rex was struggling with it, and her main plan, not necessarily, her main plan was to escape, but also with Rex, and they figured it out. We got a cool scene with that, with them, with I am the Force is one with me, that kind of thing, that mantra.
What?
You know what I'm talking about? When she...
You totally just butchered that.
What is it?
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
That was close. But... And then you get the awesome shot when Ahsoka's overwhelmed and about to die, basically, because she's already been shot twice, I think, by the clones stampeding in, and Rex takes out 3 of them. And it's like, yeah, I feel great. I'm sorry, I almost killed you. All this stuff, which I think is interesting that they remember what they did, which is crazy after they remove it. So my issue now, and I know I texted you before the final episode, maybe we get some clarity, and it never came. So I don't understand how Gregor and Wolfie would have figured that out on their own.
Yeah, that probably will be something in a comic at the end of the day, sadly. But the rest of it, I did really like that way, because I couldn't have really seen Rex do it to himself because he was so loyal.
Yeah.
To the Republic, and I did think it was actually really tragic that like he was so forward fighting his way out, probably as like a coping mechanism, because that's the only thing he's ever been. And you can see it, especially even when he like takes his helmet off, he's crying. So you're like, why are you so gung ho about killing your brothers? And then he takes his helmet off and he's in tears. So you can like see how it's messing him up. So I really like the way they did that, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, it still leaves that question like, okay, what the hell happened to you guys? Like, you bump your head or something?
Right, exactly. Yeah, granted, it was an awesome scene. I'm not trying to take away from that. It just opens up a little bit of a can of worms from how we just previously thought it was. I guess it saves Cody, too. It's like, because Rex could have been like, hey, take this thing out. Because he's like, no. And then he shoots Obi-Wan with no mercy. So I guess that looks better for him. That it just was not. Rex didn't even take his out on his own accord.
And I guess this even points more to the fact that, like, yeah, Disney, this is what you get for for canceling the fucking show. Like, finish it. You would have had this, and you wouldn't have even had these issues that people might be having. Or Rebels probably could have been even better if you let them. But at the same time, we might not have gotten what we got now, and I really like what we got now. So who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm picking little nails here about stuff. So I don't mean to say I don't like it. I think this is really good. I give it an overall B+, just because the middle arc was just hard to wade through.
Gotcha.
So, but the end stuff is fantastic, and everything with Order 66 and Ahsoka and Rex is awesome. So, the other thing I wonder, and it's not really a plot, I just wonder, like, I wonder if Ahsoka talked to anybody. Like, did she try to reach Obi-Wan? Anything like that, or Yoda? Did they just go away? Rex is like, drop me off here.
You mean after?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Because they kind of show, like, in this season that Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, even though Anakin is her master, like, they're pretty close, too. Like, there's a couple transmissions in there where they talk about some stuff, and Obi-Wan kind of says some things he probably shouldn't have if she's a quote-unquote citizen, as Mace Windu says. Yeah. You know? So, like, they also clearly have a good relationship. And obviously with all the Maul stuff, and Obi-Wan being the Maul destroyer. So they say. I thought that was interesting. I wonder what happened. Because Obi-Wan and Yoda, obviously, were trying to scheme and plan things after it was all over. But, yeah. What was your take on that?
We might see... I hope we might see something like that in the Kenobi series.
I'm excited for that. With McGregor back.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be straight up when he's on Tatooine, or if it's going to be like he's on Tatooine, but then there's going to be episodes of like flashbacks, hopefully with Hayden Christensen as Anakin.
Right, because that is now rumored, correct?
Yes, I think. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. We'll have to see. I know that was delayed, right? So.
Yeah, I believe so.
And rumors are Ahsoka Tano and Captain Rex will appear in The Mandalorian, right? Season 2. Those are rumors, right?
I really hope so.
What is the age of everybody? How long do people live in this? That's the problem. I mean, it's Palpatine's the problem, like with this, because he's like 50 in Episode 1, and like Episode 9, there's been, I'd say probably the prequels take place over 10 years, maybe roughly 4 to 6. I feel like it's like 5-6 years. It's not that long. But then there's like that 30-year gap between 6 and 7. So it's like, all right, like I get the clone thing, like 120. That's like roughly, maybe. I don't know. That math probably doesn't work out. But you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, it is. The timing, yeah, I agree. It's kind of like, but how did this happen in this amount of time? Like
Obi-Wan ages into an old man between 3 and 4, and yet Palpatine looks the exact same. Like, all right, well, that's not how that works.
I saw people explaining that with like Tatooine has a lot more radiation with 2 suns or something. I was like, all right. I
Those
guess
people
so.
should get a day job.
Yeah, the people that are like that study it as like a history class.
Be like, Tatooine's atmosphere. It's like, all right, we don't like stop, okay? I didn't need to go that hard with the explanation. Like, I'm just bringing it up.
Which, like, I definitely do appreciate some of those guys. Like, I honestly get into that mindset a little while, but at the level they do, whew.
You know, the problem is that that's not the only one. That's the thing. If you just went deep on one thing, it'd be fine. But it's like that they're constantly posting. It's like, all right, this week we're like examining Dagobah. It's like, all right, like we don't need to do that. Like, we get it. It's
Right.
dark. Like, it's swampy. It's Florida. All right, we get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's interesting though. So I mean, I guess we'll see what comes forth next. I know there's been rumors they want stuff in between 6 and 7 too. So we'll have to see. I mean, you know, the last two things start. I mean, other than episode 9, Mandalorian and Clone Wars come out strong. I do think it's easier to tell these type of things, you know, in series like these where you can expand more on certain things than in movies, because the strength of Marvel is that all their characters can have their own movies, team up to kick ass for the big $1 billion ones, and then they go into their own character developments, and you see a little bit more of that in the big movies. Where Star Wars, like, there is no Star Wars Rey, Star Wars Finn. Like, you'd have series about this, but you're not going to make a movie about Finn. You know what I mean? And vice versa. You could, I guess. I mean, Rogue One's done that a bit, and Han Solo as well. But those are all kind of separate iterations of the character, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, if I'm going to be honest, I am really hoping that they do something like for the sequels as they did for the prequels, because, like, I think the Clone Wars is the reason why the prequels are just so loved.
yes, I agree.
And because I guess in the past, people were like, prequels don't make any goddamn sense. Like, none of this is supposed to happen. Why is this like this? This is stupid. And I think that's a lot of the reason people don't like the sequels now, which, like, I like the sequels, but my big issue with them, like, what happened, dude? Like,
Yeah, it just feels sick, like.
Didn't this already happen? Didn't this just happen? What happened to the New Republic, man?
Yeah.
So if they did a whole, like, series with the New Republic to give some context, that would be nice. I would really enjoy that.
Yeah, maybe the key is just Star Wars keeps messing up their movies. That way we get awesome, like, in-between series. Maybe that's what we should do. Let's just plan for them to mess up. Don't get so upset and just realize it's going to become a series eventually, and it'll be all okay.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, though, because the problem... I still love the prequels. Episode 2 starts a war. And Episode 3, you're at the end of the war. And it's like, how... What? Like...
Yeah.
Like, literally, Episode 3, they're like, General Grievous makes a last-ditch effort to take the chance. So it's like, all right, what? The war just started. Who is General Grievous? What? Like, I don't... What happened?
Yeah, Episode 1 should have been Episode 2.
Yes.
But the whole thing should have been like a flashback. Like, show the duel and everything, the duel of the fates.
If this podcast made more money and we had, like, a big following, I feel like that'd be one of our shirts, like, from our episodes. Be like, Episode 2 should be Episode 1, and we should have the Clone Wars should have been movies. Change my mind. Like,
Episode 1 should have been a movie, changed my mind.
yeah, it's like Episode 1 should have been 5 minutes. We didn't need Newt Gunray.
This is not how it's supposed to be.
Correct. There we go.
I could not. I tried to. Ave wanted to watch before she left, like over break. She's like, I want to watch some of the Star Wars movies. So we watched 1 through 5. She didn't finish the original trilogy. Ask her that. Ask her why. Because I like the Return of the Jedi. But she's like, where should we start? And I'm like, well, I guess we can start at 1. I don't really want to. And she's like, well, let's just do, I want to watch the first one. Like, let's watch 1. And I was like, okay. At the end, I was like, do you see why I don't like this movie?
It's terrible. I mean, George Lucas, I mean, they can't all be winners, but man, he really pushed for that, and it's like, man, you gotta, I don't know, who knows, maybe someone this, or it's like, no, this needs to be a full movie. It's like, yeah, our script's only 10 pages.
It's funny, I was talking about it with my family a couple of years ago, and I was like, I hate Episode 1. It's the worst. Like, it does nothing for any of the story. And my one cousin's like, what do you mean? I was a kid when that came out. Like, that was my Star Wars. I'm like, no, it was garbage.
It is
like,
garbage.
I don't even care. It's so garbage.
It's like me, like, saying, like, for the Lions or something. I grew up when they went 0-16. It's like, yeah, well, okay, you grew up that they're still your, like, Lions, but they still suck, all right? You have to admit, like, it still sucks. It's not good at all. No, I agree. Like, I don't know, like, Qui-Gon and Darth Maul are the best things that come out of that movie, other than just Obi-Wan being in it again. And, like, one, we got enough Maul after that, so, like, that was fine. That worked out. But, like, I don't know, you just don't kill Qui-Gon, you put him in the Clone Wars as a rebel kind of Jedi General. We're good. That's it. That's all we need. We're fine.
Well, I did like Qui-Gon, how, like, he was what everyone was supposed to be, and he was the guy that died. So it kind of added a bit of tragedy. Like, this dude had it all together. This guy was the person that should have trained Anakin, but we see how that happened, and that makes it more of a tragedy, but you don't get that level of tragedy because they don't emphasize that. And I'm like, this is a sad story, but you're not emphasizing any of the sad parts, so people don't even notice that it's sad.
Yeah, it's like, this dude died. That's it. Move on.
Like, you realize the repercussions of this shit? I guess not.
Last thing I want to bring up, because we've done an hour now. So I realized this the other day. Isn't it interesting? Because, I mean, I know we don't know if Darth Maul was ever a light side guy. I don't think he was with the Force. No. Palpatine wasn't either. But the two other Sith Lords in this continuity, whatever. Count Dooku, his master was Yoda, and Anakin was Obi-Wan's. And those are the two guys that are trying to stop everything in Episode 3 and trying to still save everything. And if you were to rank, not necessarily most noble, but like most embodiment of what the Jedi should be, I think Yoda and Obi-Wan would be in the top 3 or 4. It's just interesting that they ended up training two killers.
I think they both, like, Obi-Wan definitely still had, like, a lot of the dogma, but I think Yoda especially realizes, like, yeah, we messed up.
Yeah, he admits it, right, to Luke, who also trained a dark side person. They got the best Jedi trained.
The best character in the sequel trilogy.
I'd be down with that.
Oh my god, even the sequels, man, like, sequels could have been so much better if they, like, explained why shit was there, but they're like, yeah, we fast forwarded a bunch and a bunch of stuff has happened, but we're gonna leave you off at the results of these actions that you don't know what happened and you're supposed to care. Like,
once I feel like the sequels lost me when, rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
When she flies through space.
Well, also that, like, what the hell is that? And they're like, here, episode 9, here's some for Jedi training. It's like, some. No one can fly through space, okay?
Yeah.
No one, like, there's a lot of shit that happens in this universe. Flying's not one of them, okay? She's not Iron Man. But also,
no, go ahead.
No, they had that full scene, and, like, the whole leadership dies, which is just tragic. Uh-huh. And, like, all right, she Carrie's had her time, whatever. And to the point, the movie gets released, and Carrie Fisher is dead. The actress is dead, okay?
Yeah.
And episode 9, so, like, we're going to use old footage of her coupled with CGI. And, like, it wasn't terrible, but, like, some of her dialogue was clunky. Like, it was bad. And obviously, because you're using old footage of a person who is dead. And it's
you're trying to make it work, yep.
When Fast and Furious continued on after Paul Walker died, one, they used his brother, and everything worked out. They finished that movie, and they didn't kill him, which I respect. But they had him ride off to the sunset, and every time that scene comes on, by minute 2, I'm crying, when they start driving away. I'm crying. It doesn't matter. It's been proven for years. But they didn't bring it back. Like, they just knew. It's like, all right, you know what, we're not going to use old footage. Paul Walker, he's going to... Speaking of which, CGI that ages really well, that still holds up today. You really can't tell the scenes that they used his brother in. You can kind of tell at the beach, obviously. Other than that, though, because they were halfway done with filming, so half the movie is fake Paul Walker, and you still can't really tell. So, shout out to Fast and Furious. That was not the case in the sequels. And it's just like... did you go against it just because was Leia really that crucial to the narrative? I mean, you can argue, sure, and maybe they didn't want to kill Leia and Luke, but it's also like this caused more problems than it solves.
Well, there's the thing, like, she died, so I could have seen if she died after they were filming or like when they were already in post. I'd be like, all right, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Like, your story's already complete. It's not, you can't just refilm it now. But if they were in the middle of filming and she dies, that's the time where you're like, okay. And that also shows how they didn't even have a fucking plan.
Yeah.
Because like if she dies during production, okay, you got to change some shit because your little semblance of a plan you got going on is going to fall apart or just be like shitty, because you can tell when it's like,
yeah,
like you said, when they do the CGI and like they try to stitch her lines together, it's like she sounds so disingenuous or like not actually knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like The Last Jedi should have been Leia's send-off and The Rise of Skywalker should have been Luke's. They should have just switched that.
Yeah, and they butchered it. The thing too, last thing, then we gotta go. The thing with Leia, like, if they had pulled that off, right? You know, okay, well, we all expected her to die in the movie because the actress is dead once again, and with that type of scene, right, where you think she's gonna die and she ends up living, like, for that iconic of a character, it should be like epic, you know, like, oh my god, that was great, whatever. But after that scene, I was like, that was stupid. I'm like, that was dumb. Like, her flying through space is dumb. Like, there were multiple times in, once again, Fast and Furious, where there's a time, I'm sorry, I bring it up, but it's just the best comparison, where Brian, Paul Walker's character, is trying, like, a bus is going, cratering into the ground, and he's trying to get off of it, and you're like, oh my god, this could be Brian's done. And they had already filmed it before, obviously, so, like, you realize that as you go on through the movie, like, he's going to be fine. But like, you still feel all that tension, and eventually the way they sent him off is even more emotional than you could have imagined him dying as in the movie. When Leia pulls her ass out of space, which we can talk about the physics of that another time. There's still all the physics in this universe, to my knowledge, and she lives. I'm just like, that was dumb. Like, that did nothing for me emotionally.
See, there are two things that I think could have fixed that scene. There's the one where I was actually disappointed that she like opened her eyes. I thought that would have been like insanely like tragic and influential in Kylo's story, because he was like, you know what, I'm not gonna kill my own mother, and then I forgot who swooped in, just killed him and been like, all right, like, if you're not gonna do it, I will. And that would have been like, you would have just watched that happen. And she would have died right then and there, and it would have been so emotional to be like, "Oh my god!"
Mm-hmm.
So I would have preferred that. But to make, even if you wanted to make her fly, it would have been better if they would have shown her to like have that, you know, I'm about to die, I'm gonna just be really like adrenaline rush, and it would have focused on, instead of her flying towards the ship, it would have shown her grabbing the ship and pulling it towards her, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like that would have kind of gone better if it was more like, yeah, she's actually pulling the ship back to her. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that kind of would have been better to look at, because you never see anyone fly, you just see them pulling and pushing stuff. So,
right,
who knows?
Yeah, I think would have taken anything over the scene we ended up getting. So
yeah,
there's that. But yeah.
Because that was a theme with the sequels. The first movie, the whole entire Republic just somehow dies after one attack.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's apparently everything they have on one planet. You're like, okay, the New Republic that I know nothing about is dead. I'm supposed to care.
Yeah,
and then the Last
Hitler
Jedi
killed them.
Yeah, the Last Jedi, all the Rebellion 2.0, all their leaders die in one hit, and it's like,
just terrible. On. Just tough. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have covered, I think, every angle and everything. And the thing is,
all things Star Wars.
with all of these movies and decisions. We could just keep going on and on about them and probably map out a better road than has been taken. But that is hindsight, and that is what being true fans does. So, Thorin, Max, thank you guys for coming on and spending an hour of your quarantine with us. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, Zach.
This is the 50th episode of The Assist. Ooh.
Yeah.
We're dropping some fresh merch.
Maybe, might have to.